Hi, my name is Fritzi Horstman, and welcome to Compassion in Action. My guest today is Dave Asprey, and he's a biohacker. He's actually the father of biohacking. And he says that biohacking is the art of changing the environment around you and inside you so that you have full control of your body and brain. And I want to bring these principles of having full control of your body and brain to the people in prison. That's why I'm doing this podcast with Dave. So here's a little bit about Dave Asprey. Known around the world as the father of biohacking, Dave Asprey is an acclaimed health science entrepreneur, founder of Bulletproof Coffee and Danger Coffee, four-time New York Times bestselling author, and host of an award-winning Top 100 podcast, The Human Upgrade. Dave's mission is to empower and enable people to lead happier, more conscious lives by using biohacking techniques and technology to improve the functioning and destiny of the body and mind. Dave has created billion-dollar industries to support his breakthrough protocols, including MCT oil, collagen protein, and functional coffees. He's the founder and CEO of Upgrade Labs, the first biohacking gym, and the creator and host of the Biohacking Conference, the largest, longest-running biohacking conference in the world, celebrating its 10th anniversary in 2024. Most recently, he launched the 5-day intensive program for upgrading the brain, 40 Years of Zen, an exclusive retreat that combines neuroscience, nutrition, and neurofeedback practices. Working alongside world-renowned doctors and researchers, Dave continually pushes the boundaries of what's possible in the name of science and evolution. Dave Asprey, welcome to Compassion in Action.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here, Dave.
Oh, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
I've dug into your work for years, and I even had Bulletproof Coffee when it was on Main Street.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's so cool. So you've really been there.
yeah. And I've dabbled in and out, but you're changing our lives. You're changing millions of people's lives, and and I want this information to get to the people who can't afford it, who can't find it because it's not in their immediate world.
Yeah, there are things that you can do that don't cost anything, and all of my work, here's a new idea, like that you have control of your biology, that your body listens to the environment you're in, and that no matter where you are on the socioeconomic forum, and frankly, even if you're incarcerated, you don't have a lot of control over your environment. You do have some, right? And it's that it's easier to change yourself when you make a small change in your environment. And who knows, maybe people who design environments, whether it's low income housing, whether it's part of the prison industrial complex, or whether it's part of the cubicle land that most of us spend our days in, all of those, we can change those environments so that we become healthier, higher performance. And you might say, well, who cares? But here's the thing. People who have adequate nutrients and have environments that support human health and biology, it means we're nicer to each other. It means that recidivism rates go down. Now, that might be bad if you run a large prison for profit, but if you're a government responsible, like most of them around the world are, for keeping people out of prison, not putting them in it like we do in the US, well, that might be good for everyone, including the people who are working to improve their lives. Something like 85% of people in prison, and this is a statistic that I've come across in my work, have brain dysfunctions. It's not that they chose to do whatever the heck put them in there, if they even did it. The question is, what happened? And you balance out a dysfunction that, oh, this guy had a genetic thing. He needed more zinc and he couldn't metabolize folic acid. So he was more prone to being angry all the time. By the way, I'm talking about myself. Like when I fixed that, I became a nicer person. And I look at where I was as a teenager, and frankly, I'm pretty lucky. a few times that I didn't end up arrested because I did a lot of stupid stuff and I got in a lot of fights and I did a lot of stuff that today, if I'd have done those things, I'm sure it would have got me in trouble. Things were probably different in the 80s, but um, the amount of things we take credit for that are caused by our environment and our biology is huge. And if you're a mom and you're at home and you're struggling, to balance things with a couple of kids and you yell at your kids, it's your biology. It might be some trauma too, but it's your biology. Because if your biology worked, you'd be able to manage your trauma better than you do. So I just look at this whole situation and I just feel compassion because, we all do our best. I used to put auto parts in boxes for 5 years. I used to weld Toyota truck frames, not very well, which is why I didn't have that job for very long. But I've done, what people would call blue collar, sweaty, dirty labor for meaningful amounts of time when I was paying for my college. I also started a company and did some other cool stuff. But I'm like, how do I make money? Because I'm going to be scrappy. And so that's given me just this broad view. And we're all doing our best. It's just your best isn't that good if you're drinking energy drinks and eating Cheetos all day long. For the same money as that, you can eat food that makes you feel good.
Right. But getting that food into a prison environment, I agree.
Well, that's why herring is such a big deal. It's one of the healthiest foods you can get when you're in prison, right? Little cans of sardines. Literally, that's brain food. That stuff is precious because it is the most nutrient dense thing with the fatty acids that they're intentionally starving you of, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. And you say in Smarter, Not Harder, which is one of my favorite of your books.
Thank you.
You say when you have more clarity and self-awareness, you are nicer to yourself and other people. It puts you in the driver's seat. And the thing about prison is everyone is cranky. Everyone hasn't had enough sleep. Everyone is living with junk light. Everyone isn't getting the right nutrition. So, where do we start? Because this is not just affecting, as I say, what happens in prison doesn't stay in prison. This is affecting the families. This is affecting the officers. The life expectancy of an officer is 59 years old. So when we start to hack prisons with with what you know and all the experts that you work with, we can actually have an effect on the lives of not only people in prison, but their families. And that affects our society.
There's another similar environment to this, and you'll probably laugh. It's very similar to a prison, a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Every little thing is controlled. They hire the same registered dietitians to make hospital food as they do prison food. And these are people who are trained for the most part. I actually know some really good RDs. They call themselves functional registered dietitians, and they do training after they get out of school. Some of my biggest haters online are, I'm a registered dietitian and all you need is a chemical food concoction. And those are the same people who say it's ethical, legal, and safe to blend a whole bunch of crap into a loaf and feed it to someone, even though the stuff is provably causing diabetes in people and making their brains hard to function. I will tell you, if you put me, and I am a high performance, very successful human being, you fed me what we are feeding people in prison today, and you put me under the prison lighting and the low sleep quality, I would probably become a violent person.
Yeah.
And I have studied meditation around the world. I have, I run a neuroscience company. I've spent 6 months of my life with electrodes on my brain, learning how to control those networks consciously. But it's like your computer doesn't work because it's not plugged in, and it doesn't matter how much you want it to work. We're pulling the plug on the energy systems that allow people in prison to regulate themselves. This is why shift workers, and particularly hospital workers, have the same life expectancy as guards in prisons, as well as people in prison. It's because the food, the lighting, the environment is designed by people who do not understand humans. On top of that, in prison, they dehumanize people in prison. And the reason that we're doing that, just from the more spiritual, emotional, psychological side of what I do in biohacking, if someone makes a mistake, or maybe it wasn't a mistake, I've had people premeditated steal money from me, like meaningful amounts of money. Heck, I had a family member try and do that, and I caught them in court. Right. So whether it's it's because you made a mistake, or because you had really bad judgment, or because your brain short-circuited and you punched the guy who at the time really felt like he needed it, and later you really realized you didn't do that. Look, these are human things. These have always happened. You go back to Greek times, we were doing this stuff. And it's not that we want to do it. It's just that, okay, so because of that, we're going to put you in an environment where you almost certainly will have a harder time improving than if you'd have just stayed out. Right. So I have a hard time with it. But why do we do that? And why do people dehumanize people in prison? It's because they did something we might do. And it's the same reason if someone gets divorced, half their friends will like back away because it points out their own vulnerability in their own relationships. They don't know that's why they're doing it. They just feel like, ew, and then they back away. And people in prison have the same effect on them. Or saying, I'm an ex-con. It's supposed to be, I paid my dues. I made a mistake and I recovered and I did it. But people don't act that way. And the legal, everyone who's been in and out knows this. The legal system, the financial system, it's set up to screw you over. So you'll go back in. The limitations that are on you on getting jobs, like you're supposed to be self-sufficient, but instead of being self-sufficient in the same way as other people who are struggling, half the people in the US don't have $1,000 for emergency expenses. I don't know what the percentage, but I can tell you that if my kids were going to die, or where there was a really strong need and I didn't have the money for it, I'm going to get you the money because this is my kids, right? And if I had to bend a few rules here and there because it was my only choice, maybe we need to fix the world outside as well as the world inside of our prison system. And I mean, we all know that private companies owning prisons has been bad for the world. And we all know it's happening. And if you're the CEO of one of those companies, I'm sorry, brother, like you can do better. And if you're a legislator who allows that, pay the private prison to reduce recidivism. I'll pay you twice as much for this guy if he doesn't come back. That's a simple fix, and everybody wins on that, except for the companies getting free labor from prisoners. I think we call that slavery, because that's what we used to call it, but I'm glad we've rebranded it. So I just stand with, look, if you've been violent, if you've stolen stuff from people, you probably have been traumatized. You probably got taught to do that. And you probably have brain dysfunction the same way I did. So we unpack that. And what's going on is you are responsible, but it's not your fault. If that makes sense.
I agree.
Taking responsibility is big, but the fact I took as much responsibility as I could at the time, I just didn't have the tools or the electricity in my brain to do it. Now I do, and I own it. And I have met some profoundly wise and compassionate and calm people who spent time in prison that taught them something. So I don't want to make light of it. I haven't ever been in jail or in prison. So from where I sit, I feel so much compassion. I know that if I was in, I would be doing breath work every single day. Mm-hmm. One of the things you can choose to surround yourself with is a certain kind of person. And if you can find people who are, even in the context of that, they're working on improving themselves, not just lifting stuff. There are people who exercise, because one of the few things you can do. Try doing exercise and breath work and meditation. And I will tell you with absolute certainty, if you learn those techniques, which can make you more in charge of you, which means it can make you more peaceful. It can also make you better able to take care of yourself physically if you need to. It can make you non-reactive. And that's the biggest thing of all. So when someone comes at you and they really want to provoke you and you simply cannot be provoked, yet you are not weak, that's a Buddhist monk. Like, no, you're not going to provoke me. You're not going to provoke me. And if they do provoke you, you will not react violently. You might choose to do something to protect yourself, but that is not a reaction. It is a protective choice. And people like that are so incredibly peaceful and so incredibly dangerous. And it's funny. I have a coffee brand since I left Bulletproofer about 3 years ago. I would say we were separated. I started a company called Danger Coffee. And people go, you can't say that, it's dangerous. I want safety. But here's the deal. The subtitle is, who knows what you might do? Because people who have energy have power, and they might do anything. They might remain calm in the middle of a storm. They might get a new job. They might change their life. But who knows what you might do comes from having energy. In this case, it's from having minerals. How much would it cost us to put minerals in our foods? You got enough potassium and magnesium? It would cost almost nothing. And there are studies. In fact, there was a juvie facility, I believe it was in Central California. This was in the 90s. They took a multivitamin, just a basic cheap multivitamin, gave it to everyone, and the violence rate went down by 80%. So after the clinical trial was over, the guards pooled their money to buy supplements for the people in the facility because it reduced their chances of getting stabbed. Like, we know this. We have known this for decades. And I don't know what to do with the laws, but I do know that we can increase compassion from the people who run these places. And if you go to your shareholders and say, I spent $500,000 across all of my facilities on supplements for prisoners, but then 20% of them stopped coming back as repeat clients, I don't know how you explain that to investors, and that's why you shouldn't have investors in prisons.
I agree. It costs about $130,000 in California for one incarcerated individual. So
Well, thank
that's
goodness
what,
California has so much money to spend on that. Oh wait, it's a bankrupt state still doing that. How can we do this? Sorry, keep going.
yes. So I think all of these things that you're talking about could be scientifically figured out. We could run a pilot, run a test, and
They have been. Like, there is evidence for all of these things. It's simply that we don't want to pay attention to it because it's inconvenient for profits. Here's another thing. So one of my passions for the last 25 years has been neuroscience. Like, how do you train your brain to work better instead of just meditation and breath work, which absolutely works and you can do for free in a cell. You can do it in solitary confinement. In fact, if I was in solitary confinement, all I would be doing was push-ups a couple times a day and whatever other exercise, body weight. And then the rest of the time I'd be doing breath work and meditation. There are types of breath work that are more effective than psychedelics at putting you in altered states so that you can go in and do the personal growth work you need to do. By the way, they're not addictive. You couldn't be addicted to breath work. So it's not, sorry, it won't work for escapism, but it will work for seeing yourself. But the neuroscience side, I came across the CEO years ago of one of the companies who makes the kind of equipment that I make today. We read your brain waves, little stick-on things on your brain. And he did a trial in Texas, where I live today. I don't know which part of Texas, but this is related to me by the man who it happened to. So I consider this to be credible. And he reduced the recidivism rate amongst people who had done his brain training in prison by something like 90%. Almost no one came back. And it was really, really profound. So you think that this would be amazing, but no. What happened is the FBI called and they said, someone we're watching just put a hit on you. And they traced it down, and it was the warden from the prison where it was. And you almost couldn't make this stuff up. And when they caught him, they said, why would you do that? And he said, because people in prison should suffer. So there are people in the world like that. But I believe, actually having been really good friends at one point in my life with a guy who worked in a juvenile detention facility as a guard. You want to help, you need, actually I dated someone who was a prison guard for 2 years, come to think of it. She wasn't a prison guard the whole time, but yeah. And her dad was a prison warden, not warden, but high up on the education side in the Bay Area for 30 years. This is going way back in my history here. I'm just thinking about it. He was a great guy. He just wanted to help the guys. I mean, he was more on the education side. I'm sure he, wasn't the, takedown squad or whatever they're called, but like there was a desire to help even there, right? Amongst some of the people, and there in every environment, including business, including, there are some people who just, they need to chill, right? Your job though, if you're in a prison or an environment where you have very little control, make it so they can't provoke you either. Like there's a level of just inner control, and it can come at no cost. It is harder for you in prison, and it is doable. The stuff they did to guys like Nelson Mandela, They wanted to kill him in prison. This is in South Africa. He guy spent something like 20, 28 years in prison for being a political activist, because obviously that's a crime. But one of the things they would do, they'd put him in barrels of salt water, sometimes for 2 or 3 days at a time, to try and dehydrate him, like a human pickle. He wrote about this. And he had such resilience of spirit that not only did it not take him down physically, it didn't break him emotionally either. And I'll tell you, everyone, even the most powerful person that I'm aware of, even the Buddhist monks, with enough years and enough cruelty, like Guantanamo Bay level stuff, it affects us in our cells, in our body, before we have a chance to think. And we want to make a world where if someone tries to provoke you, there's nothing there to provoke. It will not feed that kind of person, and they will move on, whether it's another inmate or it's someone in the ranks of control, where you're not a fruitful target, right? And when you can carry that vibe, it's not because I'm dangerous, I'm the biggest and baddest and strongest. It's because it's not worth it. And it's a very different vibe. And I've seen people learn to walk in peace. And this isn't the kind of peace where a peace because I'm afraid or peace because they're afraid. It's peace because peace is like fear. It's a state and it's contagious. So yeah, you can be really tough and really strong. And if you ever seen those guys in the yellow robes and the shaved heads and they look all peaceful, if you fuck with one of those guys, they will take you down. And when they do it, you will not see it coming. They'll be perfectly peaceful, and then you'll be on your back because they have a choice. It's not because you could make them do it. And you want to be someone where no one can make you do anything. And that's the lesson here. And how do you do it? Honestly, it's breath work. It's building a little thing in your mind that's always going, what am I thinking right now? What am I feeling right now? I wonder why. What caused that? And you might have the weirdest things pop into your head throughout the day. I remember when, in my case, a lot of this would have been bullying, right? You know, a lot of the people who end up as adults getting in violent altercations, heck, half the people in the MMA world are that way. It's because they never felt safe, because people kept kicking their ass in 5th grade. And like, all right, I'm going to be the guy who can do it. Yes. And then you take that forward, and now you're 23 years old and you got a little bit drunk and you know how to handle yourself because you had to handle yourself because your entire life you were getting beaten on. And then you snapped, and now you're in jail for 10 years. I don't think that's very fair or reasonable, right? But that state isn't the only way to be strong.
Well, and what you're describing is a lot of reasons why people join gangs and why they do things that go against their own authenticity and their own true nature. So I want to talk more about neurogenesis if you can, because I think, first off, BDNF, can you tell us why BDNF is such a great thing for us? The miracle grow of the brain.
Sure. BDNF stands for brain-derived nootropic factor, which is basically medical words for miracle grow for your brain. When your brain has more of this, it transforms. It's easy to create new states, to remember things, to create new thoughts, and to transform yourself. Imagine how quickly people learn when they're 12 or 5 even, or even 18. New languages are relatively easy, and you try and teach a 70-year-old, they can do it, but it's hard work. Well, one of the biggest reasons it's hard work is how much BDNF can your brain make. It goes down as you age, unless you have practices that raise BDNF. And you can raise it. There are supplements that are available, but you're unlikely to have that if you're incarcerated or you're in an area where you can't get supplements, except maybe by Amazon. And even then, someone's going to steal it before you can open your door, right? So what do you do in a situation like that? Well, intermittent fasting can make a difference, which means, you skip a meal, you skip breakfast or skip dinner. I don't know, to be perfectly honest, if I would recommend intermittent fasting if I was in a situation where I didn't have control over my food. Because if you skip breakfast, they're not going to give you twice as much lunch, right? That's a big problem. And so you probably don't want to do that unless you're overweight and you're working to lose weight. And you might say, all right, I'm going to skip breakfast and see how I do today. And who knows, maybe get the breakfast and give it to someone you like. Not because you're trading it for something, because you're like, hey, I'm working on myself. I thought you could use this today. And without expecting something back, I don't know what'll happen. It probably depends on where you are and who you are, but
There are guys that are doing intermittent fasting in some of the
there are.
prisons. Yes. So
Congratulations, guys.
it is happening.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've seen is when people go in, and I've talked even to a couple executives who've been in, because usually they made a political enemy who then used the legal system against them. And oftentimes they get type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure within 8 months of being in. And the reason for that is you don't get any healthy fats ever, because the broken food pyramid allows prisons to feed you exclusively oils that cause diabetes and no oils that are good for you, not even one drop. And it creates this feeling inside of like gnawing hunger that never goes away. At least it does when I eat that way. Right. So the whole time you're in there, you're hangry.
Yes.
I like the word hypoglycemia as well. Hypoglycemia. Right. And it's a thing. We all know it. Like you ever say if you're a guy and you're with your woman and she hasn't eaten lunch and she starts kind of getting a little cranky with you, that's it. And if you've ever had her say, could you just eat something? It's because you do it too. And you don't feel yourself doing it. But if I ate what is on the menu at a prison, I would be constantly tired, constantly brain fogged, and constantly hangry.
Yeah.
And then you're asking me to walk around and then someone's going to challenge me. And if I'm in my right state, whatever you need, it's all right. But I'm not going to back down. Right? Because backing down is going to lead to repercussions if you're in a prison where there's a lot of gang or just, a lot of violence things. At least this is my understanding of human dynamics, not being an expert in prisons, but people are people. There's a way to back down without backing down and still be a powerful guy, but a powerful guy that's just not the right guy to do that to. I don't know if I could hold that energy. I'm pretty good at holding energy these days. I do it for large crowds and I do it in one-on-one spiritual retreats, or usually 1-on-5 spiritual retreats. Man, you mistreat me nutritionally for a while. So what can you do? I don't think they're going to let you get supplements in there. And I do the intermittent fasting is good. The most powerful thing that I've seen would be breath work. And I don't know, do you see a lot of people doing breath work in prisons?
There's classes, there's meditation, and there's some breath work.
Okay.
But you were talking about BDNF and
well, we're getting into BDNF because intermittent fasting is a way, but
right.
The other way is breath work. So breath work can raise BDNF.
I didn't know that. Is that in the books? Did I miss that?
It's probably in there.
Sorry.
Oh, are you kidding? I have like thousands of references. I do my best to organize it, so that we all, we can all do it. But there's just a wealth of knowledge in them. I would probably be a more successful author. In fact, I'm a really successful author, but there are ones more successful than me. If I was to just say, look, if you just could do BDNF, and I wrote a whole book about that and I oversimplified it, but I want anyone who reads a book to go, you know what? There's so much evidence that I have control, that I'm in charge of me, which is a huge thing. And then just pick a tool in there. And if you were to look at smarter, not harder, and say, all right, my goal is I don't want to be fat anymore, whether you're in prison or not. What are the tools in there that work for that? For instance, there's something called REHIT, which also is going to raise BDNF because exercise raises BDNF. REHIT involves essentially breath work. And here's how you do it. In fact, this might be one of the most valuable things in terms of being fit in prison. So you can put muscle on in prison relatively easily. Most people lift more than they need to. Body weight exercises where even if you're doing push-ups, push up fast, go down real slow. Pick the weight up fast, put it down real slow. That builds muscle much faster, like super slow. And from there though, how do you get your cardio? Okay. You're going to jog in circles around a little yard. That's probably not going to work very well. And the same thing goes for if you're on an exercise bike, if they have those or a treadmill or something, you don't get enough time and the time isn't well spent. So the way you get the most cardiovascular fitness in the less number of minutes takes 5 minutes, 3 times a week, and you don't break a sweat. but you'll look kind of dumb. So you got to have some guys who know what you're doing. What you're going to do is you're going to take 2 minutes and you're just going to kind of walk around. And good God, I'm trying to think about how you would do this in a prison environment without it looking just too weird. But I'm going to tell you, do it in a park, and then you're going to have to modify this wherever you are. And you may have to do it with even pull-ups, which I think you could do. So what you do is you go to a park and you wander, like just walk real slow, like slower than is fun. Just this is boring. Lower your heart rate, super calm. Super calm. Don't think about anything. And then tiger, and then you got to run for 20 seconds like you're going to die. Problem is, if you do that, I think everyone in the room is going to look at you, and that might not be a safe situation. So if you have a treadmill, if not, you're going to be super, super chill. Then you're going to jump up and you're going to do the most intense, fastest pull-ups you could possibly do. Don't hurt your shoulders, but just like, oh my God, if I don't climb faster, it's going to get me. It's going to get me till you are just dead. I only want you to go for 20 seconds, right? You might be able to do it on a rowing machine if you have one, but it has to be as if you're going to die so fast. And normally then you just go down to half strength and you keep rowing or keep jogging, and then you do it. No, don't do that. After the first one of those things, lay flat on your back and do the deep breathing exercises you hopefully learned in your deep breathing class. And you do that. And you do that for about 2 minutes. Eyes closed, have someone stand there so people don't think you passed out. But you want to really go within and just calm down. What you're teaching your body when and you can do that one more time. You do that three times a week. It's going to take you 5 minutes. Walk for a minute, run for 20 seconds, or do something hard for 20 seconds, breathe for 2 minutes, and do it again. What your body's listening to is how fast did the stress come on, the stress of the pull-ups or the running or the rowing, and then how fast did you return to a state of calm and peace? It's the speed that you return to peace that tells body, oh, I guess it's safe for me to improve now. And the studies on this show that if you did an hour of cardio 5 days a week for 2 months, okay, that would be an hour. Like, I don't even know if you get an hour of exercise time, but if you did all of it on a treadmill, you're going to improve your cardio by 2%. It sucks. And you're going to have no muscle because you're just doing that. You do what I just told you, you'll get a 12% improvement, 6 times better results in 15 minutes a week. And you could do it even in your cell if you can do pull-ups in your cell. I don't know if you can do it with push-ups. You might be able to if you can stress yourself that hard with push-ups. Or maybe even jumping rope.
Yeah,
jumping
or
rope might work
jumping
too.
jacks or something. Yeah.
Yeah. If you can get, I don't know if they give you weighted jump ropes, that would work really well, but even a regular jump rope could work well, but it seems like they probably wouldn't give you jump ropes because you could hit someone with it or something. Their prisons are pretty weird in the way they think about things, from what I understand. But the idea here is wrap it on, wrap it off 2 times for 20 seconds. And you're getting in 15 minutes, the results that most people think they get in 5 hours that they don't even get. So imagine if you had the most cardiac fitness, the most endurance of anyone around you, and it only took you 15 minutes, and then the rest of the time when you had a chance you did some body weight exercises or you went to the gym, you're going to be someone who has better self-regulation, who has better energy levels and a better brain, right? And that means when something unpleasant happens, you're not going to be the guy who just loses his shit, which all of us do. If we're hungry enough and we're stressed enough, it'll be someone else. And then they can deal with the consequences instead of you. And then you can get out and you can take the new state that you learned from that breath work. And maybe you can share with your kids. Like maybe you're a better person as a result of it. I know breath work changed my life dramatically. And so does all this meditation stuff. And you fortunately can meditate as long as you learn how to do it. If you have access to a library, read the books. The kind of meditation they're teaching you is a lot better than nothing, but it's basic stuff. You can become a full-on mental and spiritual ninja when you're in prison because you have so much time to go within, even though it sucks. It does suck. But the one thing you have is time. That's the one thing that I don't have. I have freedom, but I don't have time.
They don't have time either. A lot of the guys that I know and women that I know, they're working so hard, and they have a job, and then they're doing their personal improvement exercises and
because they have a job in prison. Yeah.
I know.
We've got to stop that. Like straight up, that's not okay. If you're not getting paid the same as someone on the outside, you shouldn't be working in prison. That's not how it's supposed to work in the US. And that's unconstitutional. It's evil and it's wrong. And it's nice they have some spending money in prison. Just 18 cents an hour is not how it works.
Agreed. We all agree on that.
Yeah.
And but but we're working on improving all of it. So, but when they get their heads in the game and their brains in the game and they're less reactive, this is the lessons that you're teaching them. And this is what they need to know, because the reactivity is what it's in their operating system.
Oh yeah.
In their meat OS, and it's in all of us, but it's,
Yeah.
this is serious stuff in prison. This could cost you your life.
A lot of people wouldn't guess this about me because I'm seen as a relatively calm and peaceful person, and I am today. And I've affected millions of people's lives in a good way, but spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and I'm just forever grateful for that. I've been in more than 100 fistfights before I got out of high school. Like I never threw a first punch, but I might have started it every time. And I all but one time threw the last punch because I was always the biggest guy and I was fat and I was strong. So that old physics thing is here.
But you also had traumatic brain injury too, right?
Yeah, I had a traumatic brain injury. I had a chemical induced brain injury from toxic mold. By the way, let's not even talk about toxic mold in prisons. I think there's class action lawsuits against private companies all over the place for moldy prisons. So when you get out, maybe when you're in, study some law. When you get out, these private prison companies need to just be taken to the mat for what they're doing. But that's another thing for me. You put me in a toxic mold environment, my ability to control my brain goes down. I'll tell you this, I haven't shared this before that I'm aware of. I checked into a hotel room that had toxic mold in it. San Diego. There's a lot of that in San Diego. And I didn't know it. I didn't see it. I didn't smell it. But I spent 20 minutes in the room. I started feeling a little weird, just kind of a little bit agitated. And I get in a taxi to take me to the store, actually. And on the way, I'm working on building like some kind of upgrade to the barn where my office was. I was working with the contractor, and he said, well, they can't do something like this. And I started yelling. I was like, I don't fucking care. You can burn it down if they're not gonna do it. And after like a minute of that, I got off the phone with him and I started laughing at myself. And I'm like, what the heck just happened to me? See, it's the curiosity about why you do what you do that sets you free. And I'm like, good God. And I was like, you know what? I only act this way if like something really bad happened to my brain. So I went back to the room and I looked, and where the AC blew in, there's a slimy black mold. And that's, for me, that makes me want to punch people. It doesn't do that to everyone, but it does it to a lot of people, because my body, I grew up in a basement that had that growing in my bedroom. So my body it gets into that fight or flight mode. And I called the guy back and I said, this is going to sound stupid, but I'm really sensitive to mold, and I just breathed a bunch of it and my brain was all over the place. I also took a hit to the head once. Someone hit me with their knee at high speed. We were having fun, nothing violent. Well, it was violent, but it wasn't violent for a bad reason. And I had a brain bleed. For the next 6 weeks, I couldn't play Go Fish with my kids. My brain was not good. And I swore all the time. And there's a guy named Tim Ferriss. Most people know Tim Ferriss. Tim and I have known each other for years. And I sent Tim this really angry email about something he didn't even do. And then the next day I'm like, he goes, well, hey guys, a major health influencer just sent me this, whatever. And like 2 months later, when I figured out what's going on, I reached out. I was like, Tim, I'm sorry, man. I had a brain injury. I didn't even know what I was doing. It was me, but it wasn't me, because I wasn't in charge of myself at the time. And he was very gracious about it. But I'll just say, there's times you're gonna be out of your state. And when you own that, because you notice it, instead of thinking it's real, you're like, who's driving this guy right now? Because I'll tell you, it's not you who's driving, because you wouldn't choose to do that if you had a chance to think about it. You did it before you could think, and then you took credit for it, then you felt guilty for it. Sometimes your body does stupid shit.
You're talking
and it does
about
more
a crime.
Stupid shit. Yeah.
You're talking about a crime as well, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. That rage isn't because you chose to be rageful. The rage happened in your body. It happens a third of a second before your brain even decides what's going on. And then you felt it, and you're like, the reason I'm angry is that guy. And then you're in jail. But you can make your body more chill. You can do that with your mind. You can do that with your environment. And we've got to work on our lighting environments, our air environments, our clean water, and food that actually works for people. If we did that, it'd be a lot easier, but it's possible either way.
So you've biohacked yourself from what Dr. Daniel Amen, the guy who did the SPECT scan on you, he said, Dave, this brain scan is someone who's on street drugs living under a bridge. It's amazing that you held it together.
Yeah. And one of the first person to scan my brain who was trained by Daniel Amen, he said, Dave, so when I did this, guys, for context, I'm a successful white bro in Silicon Valley, in Palo Alto, one of the most expensive places in the world, working in tech, getting an MBA from one of the top 3 schools out there. So this is, Ivy League privilege sort of stuff. And I was probably the most blue collar. I grew up in New Mexico of the guys in the class. And I went in and he's like, oh, this is a tech guy trying to get Adderall so he can study. And I went in and he said, fine, I'll order a brain scan. You guys are all the same, trying to take advantage of your status. And he kind of looked at me weird when I came back in after the scan. He said, Dave, I don't know how you're standing here in front of me. Or inside your brain is total chaos. You have the best camouflage I've ever seen. What that meant was inside my brain was total chaos because I had brain damage from mold toxins, from being 300 pounds, from hitting my head, all that kind of stuff. And through the force of will and knowing a thing or two about what to eat and not what to eat, I was holding it together enough that he just thought I was a normal person, even though inside I was not. And I will argue that if you are in prison today, you think you're a normal person, or maybe you think you're a bad person, and you're neither one of those. You're an individual person, and all of us have our strengths and our weaknesses in our brains and our bodies, our biology. The stuff the guy next to you would just be destroyed by may not bother you at all, and vice versa. But the lesson for me in there was how many people around you are looking tough or smart or strong or fast on the outside, and on the inside, they're about to fall down, or they're about to cry, or they're about to kill someone. It's way more of us inside and outside than ever before, at least in the last little while. For the last 30 years, when we ask people, this is one of my fitness companies called Upgrade Labs. When we ask people, what do you want more? I want to lose weight. Now, I want to manage my stress. I want that. I'm okay to be calm and fat. Right, because the amount of calmness that we all have is going down and down. And there's all kinds of reasons for it, and the environment's one of them. That means your job, if you want to be strong when you come out or just when you're in there, is to learn how to manage your stress, right? And some of the stress comes from that stuff they're putting on your plate that they call food. And a lot of the stress comes from beliefs you have about the world that your parents gave you, that society gave you, that your teachers gave you, your siblings, all the experiences you had up till now, including the ones when you were tiny, you don't even remember them. They made you believe things are true. But if you were to ask yourself and sit down when you have some extra time and say, is it real and is it true what you believe? You're going to find, and can I prove it? You're going to find there's a lot of things. I have to do this. There's very few things you have to do. You don't even have to do what the guard told you to do. There's consequences if you don't. And it's a really good idea to do what the guard says because they have a stick, right? But you don't have to. You're choosing to. Right. And it turns out needing things and having to do things and can't do things, almost all of those are not true. If you really think about it, it's just that's what's normally true and that's what's easiest. But recognizing when you're making a choice that it is a choice is freedom.
Self-awareness.
It's the best kind of freedom, but you are choosing that because it's what's best for you right now. But you don't have to choose it. And when you remove the have tos, you become expansive. And you become able to dream and able to think about things and see things, including, do I have to act this way? Do I always act this way? Am I a bad person? Am I a violent person? Am I a criminal? No, you're a human being, right? And every day you make choices, right? And you made some bad choices. And maybe your body made some choices that you took credit for later. I believe that's what happens to most of us. But regardless, going forward, if you own this, you can be responsible and in control instead of being out of control and still responsible, which is the way it works.
Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes, and I know you have created 40 years of Zen.
Yeah.
And so how can we bring some of the things that you do at 40 years of
Mhm.
Zen? We could do a pilot. You could show me the best neural feedback machine. And can you talk about neural feedback and how important that is and how it changed your life and your brain?
Sure. What neurofeedback is you get an electrical signal coming off your brain. You've seen stuff in movies, you know, those wires coming off your head or little caps with stuff in them. I'm thinking, do I have a cap around here? I don't. Um, well, we do that. And your brain doesn't have any idea what it's doing. And you might have seen a video on YouTube or something of they put a mirror up in the forest or in the jungle, and then a gorilla comes up and is like tries to punch it, and it's like, oh wait, that, and then it goes, oh, that's me, and then it looks and goes, oh, I got spinach in my teeth, and it starts cleaning its teeth. It didn't know it had teeth that looked like that. It just knew other apes did, and it didn't know, so because there was no way to see yourself. Well, your brain is like that, Abe. It cannot see itself. The only nerve that tells your brain anything about it is from one of your molars. So the brain is the part of you that most wants to improve and the one that has the least information about itself. It only knows about the world outside of you. So what neurofeedback does is it holds up a mirror to your brain so it can see what it's doing directly. And it turns your brain waves into sound or images. So you sit there and your brain goes, oh my God, I didn't know I was doing that. Let me get the spinach out of my teeth. And it's much faster than meditation, and it can help to repair things from brain injuries, right? It can help to repair, you know, childhood trauma or other trauma. And I'll tell you, even if you're an adult, and I've had this happen, you're an adult and you got 6 guys chasing you down and, you know, I got away. But if you don't get away and you wake up in the hospital, it's going to leave marks. These are spiritual traumas and emotional traumas that need healing as much as the physical damage that they did, right? And we don't often acknowledge that, but neurofeedback can help you do that. And if you don't have access to it, the breath work and the reset process from 40 Years of Zen that's in the last 2 chapters of Smarter Not Harder, that's the most valuable thing. So I'd love to see neurofeedback rolled out at prisons. The most important thing there first would be to do something called a QEEG. And the good news is with AI, it's becoming cheaper and cheaper to do this. So you can look at someone's brain and say, well, how does your brain differ from the average brain? What are your strengths and where do you have maybe damage? Right? By the way, 90% of the executives whose brains I scan, they have damage because they fell and they hit their head when they were 2, right? And your brain is very resilient, but it can be scrambled. And when that happens, we can train the brain with those systems to route around damage. That isn't what 40 Years Zen does. What we're doing is we're teaching you advanced meditation techniques that take 20 to 40 years to achieve. And in that last 2 chapters, I tell you how to do it without the equipment. And I'm not ready to bring the equipment in. I don't have the team or the funding for it, but I will get there. I'm just growing the company. It's a small company. You know, we do 8 people a week who come to Seattle and spend 5 days with therapists and stuff like that. Soon we'll have a remote 3-day program, and maybe then it'll be a chance to talk about it. But what you're doing is called the reset process, and I'd love to teach it to you real quick. What you do if you want to let go of something, like say you got a grudge against someone, and it usually is for every human I've ever known. At some point in your life, your mom or your dad did something that really, really hurt your feelings. Even if they were the most wonderful people ever or the worst people ever, there was something they did that just really stuck. And you're 50 years old or 30 years old, and you're still reactive to that. And you probably see the same thing in your wife or girlfriend or some other friend. And you're like, oh my God. All right. So we're going to take whatever that thing is, and you're going to think about the first time you ever felt that way. And you'll realize, I felt that way maybe when I was younger, but let's just go with a recent thing. You know, someone pissed you off and you felt triggered by it. The first thing to understand, if you can be triggered, you're carrying a loaded gun. It's generally not polite to do that unless, you know, you're in certain lines of work. So you need to be untriggerable in order to be in full control of yourself. I can program you if I can trigger you. Essentially, now I could say this because I'm on the outside, but if someone can trigger you, you're their bitch. That's how it works. And that's why guys will try to trigger each other all the time. I don't know how it is in women's prison. It's probably different, but maybe not. And so whatever it was that allowed you to have that trigger, that's a chink in your armor. That's a weakness. It's also a potential area of great strength for you. So what you do is when you got a quiet time, maybe before bed, or maybe with a friend, if you have someone you trust, you say, all right, I'm going to do this reset process. And you sit down, spend 2 minutes, deep breath, just kind of going into that relaxed state where you don't have to think about what's around you, because either you're in a safe place or you've got someone you trust sitting there watching your back. And you do that. And then you go in and you imagine the person who triggered you. It doesn't matter what time in life. The younger you are when it happened, the better it is. But we'll just do a recent one. You imagine them sitting across from you. And you can say this inside or outside with your voice, you can hear it just inside your head. You're going to sit down, you're going to imagine them like in a courtroom maybe, and you're going to say, all right, whoever it is, you did something to me. And it can't be, you made me feel bad, you threatened me. It's like, you punched me in the face, right? You threatened me and you insulted me in front of other people. Whatever the thing that they did is, it has to be very specific. It can't be vague stuff or all blended together. You say that, and you say, and it made me feel, and you're saying this to yourself, how did it made me feel angry, right? It made me want to kill you. It made me feel weak, and it probably did, right? Because behind anger, guys, I hate to tell you, if you're angry, behind anger, there's always fear. Fear is the substrate for anger. And fear rides on top of joy. So you get through the anger, you acknowledge the fear and get rid of the fear, you can actually be happy and you can be non-reactive. That's what this process is for. You did this to me, it made me feel this way. And now when you say it made me feel this way, you can't just say it. You got to actually turn on, like playing back an MP3 or something, like playing back a song. Oh man, I remember, like, you feel it in your gut, feel it in those hairs on the back of your neck. Like, I remember. You got to trigger your emotions. So now you're triggering yourself the way they did it when it happened. Okay, you ought to feel pissed off. Sit with that for just a minute. Don't sit with it for a half hour, or it's not going to be good for you. It's just a minute or two, like, and really ruminate on it. Even if you're like, God, this is really uncomfortable. I'm sweating. I'm cold. I'm feeling nauseous. Great. Feel it. And then there's the hard part. You got to find one good thing that happened out of that. You cannot do the reset process. You cannot forgive someone. And forgiveness is all about dropping a grudge. It's not about telling them you forgive them. It doesn't matter if you talk to them again. But you got to find the one good thing that happened. All right. So, someone tossed you up against the wall and you threaten you in front of other people. Well, what's the good thing that happened? The good thing that happened is you didn't punch them. Okay. Like, you didn't get more time. You didn't get whatever. Okay. Or maybe there's other good things that happened, right? Maybe it showed everyone what an asshole that guy was. I don't know. You got to find something you're grateful for. It doesn't matter if it's big. I'm grateful he didn't, choke me out that time. Great. You got something you're grateful for. It doesn't matter. Okay. And then you got to really feel the gratitude. And usually that's easier than you think. Gratitude's a thing you can play back like a song. And once you feel a little bit of gratitude, wow, even though it sucked, one tiny thing happened. The tiny thing is a switch in your body to let you access this new mode. And after that, you go into forgiveness. And what does forgiveness look like? Number one, you are not saying what they did was okay. You are not saying the person is a good person, and you're not going to tell them you forgive them. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. All you're doing is you're taking your internal trigger and you're wiping it away. And the way you do it is called forgiveness. I call it the reset process because forgiveness kind of pisses everyone off. And what you're doing there is you're just stepping in the other guy's shoes. I wonder what happened to him. I wonder what his mom did to him. I wonder what his dad did to him. I wonder why he's in here. I wonder why he's so angry all the time. And you're like, I wonder what happened when he was 5 years old, right? Maybe you know something about it. And you just realize, you know what? I wonder if he's as fucked up by this place as I am, right? I wonder if he's as hopeless as I am. And all of a sudden you just realize at some point, some shift happens, but it only happens if you felt the pain and then you felt gratitude. And then you step into this compassion state. And when you're done, if you can do it really deeply, when I do it, I'm teaching people to do it because the computer is showing them when the brain makes the shift, but you don't have that right now. So what you're going to do is you're going to feel a shift in your heart. And what it feels like, there's a field here. If you haven't breathed into your heart, find a meditation where you can breathe. And instead of your lungs expanding, you feel like a circle on your chest expanding. But what you feel is, you feel like your heart opened up just a little bit, like a little Venus flytrap kind of opening without the spikes. And when that happens, there's something in there, and it connects with the other person. Not actually connects, but it connects with this thing that's happening in your head. And when you feel like you actually made a connection, like, you know what, this person's a human. They're flawed, just like me, right? You see their humanity instead of seeing them as someone who needs punching. It unloads your gun, and you just don't feel it anymore. You might have to do it several times. And if it's for someone who's, abused you as a child for 20 years, you're going to have to do it for each time they abused you, at least go back in time. And pretty soon it's just, you've lost the hate. You lost the anger, you lost the grudge, and the energy that was going into that anger and that grudge, that constant, that was energy that came from that crappy prison food. Now you got that energy to put somewhere else, like maybe put it on your biceps, right? Or maybe put it into growing yourself and being more peaceful. It's just wasted energy, and it costs you. Hating someone costs you. It doesn't cost them anything. It just costs you. And so I want you to spend less energy on hate and anger and more energy on being the kind of person who is so in charge of yourself and so kind to yourself and so peaceful to yourself that everyone can feel it and they know they shouldn't fuck with you because there's no point to it, not because they're afraid. And so peaceful and so in control that when you get out, you're one of those guys who just makes everything happen. And I see it. I know people who do that. Andre Norman's a friend. Do you know Andre?
Yes, I just talked to him 2 days ago.
Yeah, what a fantastic human being. I was there the first time he wore his orange jumper on stage, and it was it was actually really profound. He's like, I'm wearing this in front of you because this is how I felt. I mean, he almost had tears in his eyes, and he's like, I've never been seen. I don't want to be seen this way in public, but I'm doing this so you can see how I felt. I mean, he had a room full of 500 CEOs just riveted because he actually transmitted what it felt like to be in the system. And he's out there changing lives and helping addicts and doing so much. Everyone listening to this, you can do that if you're in charge of yourself. And I truly believe that reset process there, every single day, do one thing that one person did. And I promise you, that guy or that woman who did something that really got under your skin, they made you feel the same way you felt when you were a kid. Go back and run the reset process on whoever it was made you feel that way then, and it'll create a lot more freedom for you. You've been programmed by the people who raised you, whether you wanted or not, whether they knew what they were doing or not, whether they were good people or not. You can unprogram yourself, even when you're in prison. When you come out, there's states available to you that you don't know about, but they're pretty good.
Okay, one more thing.
Sure.
Gratitude, because you talk about in Game Changers how important gratitude is, and you touched on it just now. But it's another way to change your state, which I know you just touched on, but it's so important, especially in prison. And one of the things I talk to the guys about every time is I ask them, how many of you would be dead if you weren't in prison? About 98% of the people raise their hand. So there's even being in prison is something to be
Yeah.
grateful for.
It sounds like a 1950s or 1940s thing. The old movies. Well, at least I got me 3 squares and a bunk. I don't think anyone would say that about prison today versus the way it was back when we had a different motivation for prison. But there is something to be said for where else you could have been. You could have been an addict, dead. And I know some people who have spent time. I know some people who have been clearly addicted enough that they probably would have, including some of the great business leaders, have dealt with addiction and have slept in their cars or without a car to sleep in. And I do acknowledge that I'm fortunate that in a small hick town in Central California as a teenager, I had a gang member from LA. They moved up to this little redneck town to rehabilitate him. So he formed a gang. The first thing that a gang does, they find the biggest guy to beat him up in high school. It's how it is. I was the biggest guy. So all of a sudden I've got these 6 guys, not nearly my size, but I can't take on 6 guys very effectively. I can maybe take on 2, but, and this is a guy who's, a little bit more street smart than I am, even though I've been around the block a bunch, and he was never alone. So I was getting to the point, I never talked about this in public before. I got to the point, I actually talked with my dad. My dad was, he grew up in a town called Espanola, New Mexico, where he was the only white family, and he had a gang come after him. And, there's a certain kind of brutality that comes out when you are that. And we talked about it. It's like, well, you got to find him alone and just take a baseball bat. Okay, my dad works for, the government and has a security clearance and is not that kind of guy, but he grew up with that kind of stuff. And so I thought about, like, I don't feel safe. Like I was like, does he have a knife? Like this is not a good situation. So I made a plan. I was going to go over to the place where he lived. It was like a halfway house kind of thing. And I was going to knock on the door, and I was going to break his leg, because that way he wouldn't chase me around at school. Right now, I probably would have served time if I did that. But I was, what, 15 years old? I wasn't very good at making judgments. Fortunately for me, he got arrested for shoplifting before it happened. But I came really close because I was angry, because I didn't feel safe. And maybe because I got some bad advice from my family, because my dad grew up in fear of his life and he had multiple knives pulled on him, even though he's got a white collar job and, good dad and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, sometimes you get a little bit primal. So I recognize I'm lucky I didn't end up in prison. Most young men with healthy testosterone levels are lucky that they didn't end up in prison. And sometimes it's just bad luck, right? And your job, if you entered, especially when you were younger, you got your whole life ahead of you. You have no idea what it's going to look like 10 years from now. Even if you have 10 years of time, you don't know what it's going to look like 10 years from now. But it's not predictable. I couldn't have ever predicted that I'd be where I am today. I used to be a young, fat nerd, and I've been in Men's Health with my shirt off. I've been in Vogue. Like, the most unlikely thing, dude, I'm like from Jurassic Park, the fat computer hacker, but not a bad guy. Like, what the hell? I don't know what's going to happen, but gratitude and curiosity will get you there. And learning how to control the impulses and that reset process you just learned, that's how you do it. That's how some of the greatest minds on earth do it. And it sets you free to have more energy up here and more energy here in your heart, versus energy that just goes into being pissed off at the world. And it's not irrational to be pissed off at the world. It just doesn't serve you.
Dave, I don't think could have asked for a better conversation than we just had.
Oh, well, thanks for giving me a chance to talk about stuff I don't get to talk about very often. I'm deeply disturbed by our prison industrial complex, and I have a lot of compassion for people who have spent time, because even if you did something really heinous, you don't deserve the kind of treatment you're getting. It's unjust, it's not fair, and it's wrong. And I don't know what to do to right it, but I'm in favor of it.
Yes. And with conversations like this and bringing experts into this problem, having their brains, having your brain into this problem, we can start shifting it. I think we need a lot more brains. And if you have any more brains you want to add to this conversation, please send them my way.
Excellent. Well, thanks for doing the work you're doing. We have more than 2 million people in the US, last time I looked at the number, who are incarcerated. And I'll be blunt, mostly because free labor, which is totally sick and wrong. And other times just because of injustice, and sometimes because you needed a lot of work before it was safe to put you back on the street. It's not like everyone who's there would be well served to be out on the streets without a lot of rehabilitation. We just need to do the rehabilitation. If as a society we bring you in, it's our sacred obligation to make you better or take care of you if we don't know how to do it. It is not our sacred obligation to force you to work so you can have some herring. That's not cool. It's not okay. And I recognize fully that's what's happening. I don't know what to do about it, but I'm on your side. And there are many, many people who you might think are judging you or hating you or not giving you a second chance. They either don't know or they don't like it, but we don't know what to do about it. I don't control the government. In fact, I don't think the government even controls the government these days. But whatever the heck is going on there, it doesn't matter, because what's going on right now is wrong, and I'm willing to say it.
Yeah. So let's change it, Dave. Let's do it.
Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you so much, Dave, for this incredible conversation. One of the things you said during our talk, you said it's curiosity about what you do that sets you free. And that's the key here. That's the key for you, for all of you listening to this, for you in prison and for you, our audience. Why are you doing the things you're doing? Why are you being aggressive? Why are you being reactive? Who is in charge here, right? Sometimes we do things so unconsciously. And we got to get curious about those unconscious impulses and reactions. The other day with my husband, he snapped at me, and usually I would have gotten reactive, but for some reason I just said, that doesn't feel very nice what you said. And that kind of curiosity and ability to watch our reactions and watch other people's reactions is the evidence of change and healing. And so curiosity is one of the paths, or one of the steps we take in our journey to healing. And so I'm so excited to share this conversation with you. We talked about breath work. We talked about meditation, intermittent fasting, BDNF, which will put your brain into a state that is not reactive, where you're in the driver's seat. And that's the whole game here in prison and in life, I would say, is to get our brains in the driver's seat so we can live the lives that we envision and that we want, and to bring that to ourselves, to our families, and to the world. So thank you again, Dave, for all of your encouragement and your fantastic research and information that's going to help change the lives of the men and women living in prison, and changed my life, and hopefully changed our other listeners as well. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share this podcast. And please visit our website and find out how you can get involved. And if you're so inclined, please donate. We bring this kind of material to the people in prison, and soon we will bring neurofeedback and EMDR and all these important healing modalities to the men and women in prison. We will start with a pilot, and then we will raise money to get this into the prisons and into juvenile halls and into schools, so that we can have healthy brains, and a healthy brain is a healthy person. And that's a pro-social person that will be changing lives and paying taxes and not going to prison. Thank you again for listening.